friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This video is going to be talking about Express Server EJS templating engine. We will be actually seeing how we could use the EJS templating engine to render data which could be passed on from the Node Express routes. This could be used for displaying like creation of those views. Those views could be used to display the data, or even those views could be used to actually pass on the data for a post request, like creation of like a login screen authentication mechanism or creation of a record. So we could use this EJS template engine to actually render the data, and how it could be actually used as a templating engine. We'll be utilizing the similar exercises which I have been posting in my previous videos. So we'll utilize the same exercise, and if you have not watched my previous videos, you could always refer to part 1 till part 3. So let's get our hands dirty on Express templating engine and how we could pass on the data to the views, how we could create some beautiful views out there.
So friends, if you see, this is the similar exercises that we were trying to do with the departments, and we created some routes. We used it with cookie parser and cookie session. Now let's try to see how we could use the views and Express templating engine over here. So the first thing what we are going to do is, it follows a specific structure. So we'll create a new folder within the same place where we are working. So I'll create the folder called as views, and within the views I'll, let's say, create one file which I'll call it as, let's say, show departments .ejs. So that's one of the file which I have created. So now this particular file is actually a view file, and we can use Bootstrap or some other aspects to actually use it, and then finally kind of create some layout. Now before that, there would be two parts to that. One, we need to set up a kind of a view engine before the server starts off. So what we'll do is, we'll say app.use, and I'll say the view engine is the templating engine, and I'll just pass on the EJS. That's one thing which I need to do. And the second thing which I need to do here is to actually create a route, and we'll be using this data which we already have, that is departments, which is in the form of an array of objects, and we'll be actually displaying those stuff. So what we can do over here is, so we'll say app.get, I'll create another route, let's say show departments, and we'll use a rec response, and we'll pass on. So in order to render the views, so for example, in case of show departments, we'll just use response.render, and we just need to give the name of the view file, which is show dpts, that we created over here. So we'll just give the name. We don't need to give .ejs or anything, it would just render that. And then the next thing what we need to do here is, because this particular view is going to render some data, so what we could do here is, we could pass that data in the form of some template variables, or in some kind of another variable that we could use, and pass that data to the view. Now once the data is passed off, we could actually use that data to like actually display it in the view or whatever. So let's say we just want to pass on the department, so I'll just create an object with the departments. So this particular data of the departments would be passed to this show departments, right? So this is the route, and once this route is there, it would actually give the data back to that particular view. Now in the show dpts, it's kind of an HTML file, so I'll just go with that. So let's say create a body, and that's what we did. Now in order to make it a little bit more kind of a cleaner and anything, so what we'll do is, we'll just go on to the browser, and then let's say we'll actually use the Bootstrap. So it's a ready-made framework. You don't need some kind of like a thorough expert knowledge on that. So the first thing what we need to do over here is to actually link up the CSS. So I'll just copy that, and then come back over here, and I'll link link up my CSS over here. That's what my CSS gets linked up so that I could start using it. So that looks fine. The second thing is I'll create a div class and I'll use a container so that it kind of sets up an area within the HTML, which is like a container, not fully 100% width of that. So that's what we can set. And let's say h1, this is a demo work, something like this. So once we do this, so this is done. We are not displaying the data yet, but let's firstly test it out if this view works on the show departments or not. So what we need to do here is, firstly we need to install an EJS package also. So npm install EJS. So that's one you need to install because that's our templating engine we are going to use. And I'm just going to use node1 test server.js. Test express, sorry, that's the name of my server, express. That's all. There is no server, express and .js. So once it is done, it is giving me a new type, router.use, but not index.js requires a middleware. Okay, let's see where we are getting that error. Oops, sorry, so it is not app.use, rather app.set, because I'm sorry for that. So that's what the setting the templating engine. So just go over there, let's see, it's starting off, that looks fine. So now let's go back and check the route in the browser, and the route name is show departments. So we'll copy that, I'll go over here and we'll just use http localhost 3000 and show departments. So the moment I press, so it says no default engine was specified and no extension was provided. Okay, but we did provide the extension app.get set view engine, and which is .ejs, and the response dot render show departments, which is definitely fine, and app dot oops, there is a spell mistake, typo, engine. Okay, view engine, that looks fine. Let's go back, refresh it. So if you see, this is a demo work, it starts showing it, and it's more likely some kind of a panel which we are using because the panel is not 100% width, so it just displays that. Now the next thing is we want to actually show the data which we passed on within here. So if you see, we are passing on this department's data to this view, and this department's data is nothing but as an array of objects. So what we want to display over here is, so let's say we'll say this is a list of all employees, list of all departments, and I want to use, let's say, a table tag. So we can just go over there and use a table tag. So you could just use this one, let's say the first one. So I'll just copy that material, I'll copy it. So see, it is very simple. You could just like manipulate the way you want to. They have given you code snippets and you could just manipulate that. So now let's paste it over here because that's where we want to kind of paste it around this place. And now we just need to kind of make sure that this table has what you want. So one is the ID and one is the department name. So that's what you need. So you don't need these. That looks fine. And within the body, so I just need a tr and that particular tag. So what I'll do is I'll remove the other stuff over here, and now I'll use what you call as a for loop so that we could work it around how we could structure that and make sure we could display everything. Now if you see, we have multiple records. Now if you have a multiple records, now this is how you could use the templating engine, that is less than percentage. So I could use a for loop because I want to have one row for the first department, second row for the third department, second row for the second department. So let's say I'll say let d of departments, because that's what you passed from the view, so from the route. So if you see, departments is exactly being passed to this show departments, and that could be used. Now if you go back Now departments I'm using, and I'm closing the syntax for this. Now what I need to do is, because I need to have a for loop, so it starts with the bracket, and I need to kind of close it over here also, so like percentage and then closing bracket for that. So that's where I close the for loop. So this is my for loop within the body tag, and then I'm gonna use this whole stuff, one tr, and put it within that, because I want to generate multiple rows out of that for that particular departments which we passed. And now what we could do here is, so we could just use we don't need this one, so because the first is the id, so I could display percentage is equal to, and I want d, because d is one object within the array and it has dot id property. I could check that and get that. And the second is, I have the percentage is equal to, and I say d dot d name. So that's the second property for that, and I'll close it. And I don't need this third because there is only two. So this is what you need, and then the tr is done. So it automatically creates a function for you, like a loop for you, and gets the information. And how we are getting d dot, because d is one individual department. So if you go, so one individual d represents this, so d dot id and d dot name, and then similarly d dot id and d dot name. So that's how it goes around. So that looks fine. Let's go back and check it out whether it works or not. So you refresh it, and you see, yes, 1, 2, legal, tech. So you are getting those departments. It's in a kind of a way we wanted to display that. That's definitely fine. So if you add some more rows, let's say back on the Express server, so you create another one which is id, and I'll say 3, and let's say d name is equal to software development, something like this. Now once you do that, you go back and refresh it. So if you refresh that, so you get now 3, so 1, 2, 3, and so on. So this ways, guys, we could actually display some information. You actually pass on the data from this place, like response.render. You created a views folder, have one particular file, and then you want to render that view, but then you also want to pass the data based upon that. And once in the view you get along, you could display that data the way you want. You could use for loops, or it is an embedded JavaScript within that. The whole is actually processed on the server side. So if you go back and check it over here in the inspect element, so you won't actually see the elements like that. So if you go over here, so this is just like a trtd and trtd and trtd. So you won't show that for loops or anything. That is actually processed. It is done by the templating engine, and it is generating the HTML, and then the HTML is pushed to the browser, because browser could only understand the HTML. So that's how it is functioning. So I hope, guys, you would love this video. It is more likely where you want to display some information. You could get this information from the SQL server or any other database. I'll be coming up with those videos in the coming times to actually get that information and actually display it over here, and then go it on to show it onto a view. So I'll be back with more videos, guys. Stay tuned, and if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe it. Thank you.